Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Perform Happy podcast. My guest today is an international elite gymnast who specializes in individual and synchronized trampoline. She was the 2023 English champion, 2022 world silver medal winning team member, and the junior world champion in 2018. Louise Brownsey,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. Now I want to start with, I think, my favorite part of your story. Is it true that you currently get paid to go to Disneyland and jump on a trampoline?
Yes, how crazy is that? I actually can't quite believe this is my life currently. It's incredible. I have so much fun every day. Our characters, I'm in an Alice in Wonderland themed show. And the trampoline characters are mome rats. And we're these crazy little creatures that just love life. We're super forgetful, really silly, and we do all these crazy tricks on the trampoline and just have the most fun. And it's incredible.
I mean, could your 8-year-old, your inner 8-year-old, have any better life than the life you're living in Paris, no less,
Yes.
jumping on a trampoline at
Yeah.
Disneyland?
No way. Not at all. It has fulfilled all my little desires that I've had as a kid. Makes me
Oh
very
my
happy.
gosh. Well, and you've always been a Disney fan, right?
Yes. Yeah. I've always loved Disney. I've always loved Disney songs. Like I have always been a bit of a crazy kid and loved like fantasy magical world of, Disney. So yeah, it's a crazy dream come true working here, I have to say.
I'm happy to hear that not just the figure skaters can have their Disney dreams come
Yes.
true at some point.
Yes.
Well, that's so fun. So I love that, you can, and you also are training and kind of, do you have Cirque du Soleil dreams? I mean, I see that you're an acrobat and you're always learning
Yeah.
new skills and tricks.
Yeah, so I'm really lucky here. So in our show we have straight trampolinists like me, just traditional normal trampoline people, and then we also have tramp wall people. And I currently don't do tramp wall in the show, but I'm hoping by the end of the season I will do. And so I'm learning the skills that I need for that. And we have a couple of amazing coaches here, and also so many amazing tramp wall acrobats from all over the world. We've got people from Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Portugal, France, like all over the place, America, Canada, like, and they're all so cool. So they've all been teaching me, and I'm learning tramp wall.
And tramp wall. So
And
you are jumping off the wall, up the wall,
yes,
flipping onto, off of, and then the trampoline is
yeah.
also there.
Yeah, and our wall here is really high. It's 3.5 meters. So you stand on the top and you're like, the trampoline is like quite far away, and you just have to throw yourself up it. Um, but I'm having the most fun with it. I love it. And yeah, it's been a great learning curve. I just love learning new things, so it's perfect for me,
Mhm.
really.
Well, and how cool to have risen to the highest level, the world level in one sport, and then go and find something that you can even be a little nervous to try. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, you could
No, it's
always stretch yourself.
always, and there's so many different like disciplines with that can come from trampolining but aren't just normal trampolining. And something else I have tried a little bit is Russian swing, and that's in a few Cirque du Soleil shows, and I did a training camp with Cirque back in February, and I've got another one in August for Russian swing. And that's a similar kind of thing to trampolining, like you stand on it and you do flips, but instead of me having to jump, there's a 95-kilo guy on the back of it pushing me. So that's a bit of a weird one, but it's so much fun too. So I'm hoping to explore all these new things.
Well, and so I have to think, okay, on the 3 meter wall, there's got
Yeah.
to be some nerves, but also, I mean, I don't know how many meters up you are as an elite trampoline gymnast. You are high in the air. Have
Yeah.
you ever struggled with fear in your current pursuits and at all in your
So many
learning?
times.
Yeah. What
So
was
many
one of the
times.
big fears that you had to overcome and how did you do it?
So for me, the biggest move that I've had that's been scary is something called a full, which is a double back straight with two twists in it. And it's been a skill that I could do since I was 15 or 16, but it took me until last year, and I'm 23 now, so quite a long time later, to actually get it consistently in my routine. And that's a lot of years. And it wasn't really anything in particular. There was one time where I'd kind of lost where I was in the air and got a bit confused, but that happened with other moves and hadn't really thrown me back too far. But with this one move, I just was so terrified, and I could do it perfectly fine. I could actually do it better than some other moves that I competed, and I could do it fine. But every time in training that it was, okay, we're going to do full falls, I was like sitting on the end thinking, oh, I don't think I can do it, and then that would cause me to rush, and then it would cause it to be more scary because I wouldn't be taking my time on the trampoline, and I wouldn't be doing it technically correctly, even though I could, because I was scared. So I would go, and it's been a nightmare. And it honestly took me until May kind of time last year, and I was finishing my degree. So I have a degree in maths, side point, but I did that on the side while training. Um, and so I was finishing my degree, and I was so stressed about my degree because it was really, really hard. And I was doing my final exams, and that was taking up 100% of my brain. And my coach was like, right, I had a competition the week after my final exam. Um, and it was a qualification for British Championship. So it was a relatively big competition. And he was like, right, I think we're going to compete the full. And I'm like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm competing a skill that I'm terrified of when I'm barely training. I was only coming in like 2 or 3 days a week because I was trying to revise as much as I could in the month before. And he was like, no, I think this is a good time because you don't have the capacity to worry about it. And I was like, whatever, okay. And actually, he was totally right. Because I was so focused on everything else in my life, I wasn't sat at home thinking, oh my God, I've got to do full falls when I get to training. And I just would go to training and just do them and be so not really with it that I didn't have time to worry about it. And it got me over it. And it's still a scary skill for me. It's still not good. I don't think it's ever going to be my favorite. But now I can do it in routine, and I've competed it at big events. But it took me to be completely distracted by something else to be able to overcome that fear, which was a random way to do it, but it worked for me.
Yes, I have actually heard gymnasts who like to do math while they tumble because it's and the biological reason for that is that when you are doing math, your frontal lobes are engaged. You have to use the front of your brain that's the strategizing, remembering, whereas the fear's in the amygdala in the center.
That's so
So
cool.
if you're doing math, your fear can't be as loud.
Mad. There we go. Math
There you
fixes
go.
everything.
Math fixes everything. So if you are too, well, and heard plenty of people who do the other thing where they're so stressed about their skill all day in school that they are not present in school, that they're not doing as
Yeah.
well. So if you can turn it around and actually think more about school. I mean, not for everybody. Some people, this will stress you
No.
out more. You want to just leave it all outside when you
Yeah.
walk into the gym. But that's one thing, just if you know you've trained, if you know your body can physically do it, your muscle
Yeah.
memory is trustworthy, it can actually be quite helpful to not focus on it.
Yeah.
And are there a couple things that you do focus, like I know a lot of people have sort of one thing, it's like their pre-flight checklist that as long as I do this one thing, I can trust the rest. Do you have something like that for the full?
For me, it's probably more just the trust in my coach rather than a specific thing that I do. And I've worked with the same personal coach since I was 16. And he's just incredible. Like, such an amazing man, and so good with the mental side of things. And so good at talking me out of things. And he knows before I realize that I'm worried about something, and he'll see the change in me, and I don't even know. And he'll talk to me and just distract me and keep me focused on what I need to be focused on and not worrying about the rest of it before I've even noticed that it's become a problem. And I have 100% trust in him. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that if he says I'm capable of doing something, that I am. And it still doesn't take away the fear, but it helps me to believe in myself more, that I can trust him, and sometimes just let that decision making go down to him and turn off my brain, that part of my brain.
Mhm.
And yes, I'm very lucky to have him.
Yes. Yes. Well, because that so many coaches say, trust me. Do you trust me? And
Yeah.
it's critical that you do in order to have
Yeah.
those moments where they believe in you more than you believe in yourself.
Yes.
And because of that, you can take that leap of faith. I
Yes.
mean, I think we all need that in a support squad to do anything
100%.
scary. And who else is in your corner who has helped you to be resilient?
I mean, like, my parents are amazing. My mum, both of my parents are amazing. But my mum focused more with me, and my dad focused more with my brother with our sports that we did. And my mum is a national level judge. So she would come and travel with me to events, and she like actually knows what she's talking about. So,
Which can be
you
good or
know,
bad, depending.
yeah, it can be. And sometimes I'm like, Mum, maybe not right now, but because of the fact that she really knows what she's talking about, when she has something to say, it's usually pretty helpful, and she can understand exactly what I'm doing at training. And she's never been like too involved to the point where she needs, she's never been like a super pushy parent or anything like that, just being supportive and help me to be resilient. And in the moments where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do it, she's like, yeah, you can, like, you'll be fine. And she's very much a just get on with it kind of a person, and that's how I've been raised. And in those moments where I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do it, she's just like, yeah, you'll be fine, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know, don't worry about it.
Oh boy, we're not gonna have drama. Okay, off we
Yeah,
go.
okay, cool.
Yeah, it is good because
Yeah,
then on the other hand, if you have a parent who's stressed out and, oh, are you going to be okay? What can I do? Do you need
yeah,
help? I mean, that just ramps up the stress in the hotel room
yes,
versus someone going, anywho, what are we having for breakfast?
yeah. Yeah, no, she's always been very calm around competitions, and usually she's judging at them anyway, so she'll leave at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to the competition, and I'm in my own little world. But if she isn't judging and she's there, she's usually just doing her own thing, and I'm doing my own thing, and sort of get on
Yeah.
with our stuff.
Yes. Well, and what other tips do you have for handling pressure? Because obviously the world stage can feel like a
Yeah,
lot.
yes.
What works well for you to be able to hit consistently under pressure?
So I think for me, the thing that's helped the most is keeping like really detailed tracks of my training. So I'm a very organized person, and I like numbers, hence maths degree. And I've incorporated that into my training, and with my coach, we've made these plans, and I have tick sheets of all the sections that I do for my routines, and then also my full routines. And the way we do it with our full routines is every attempt that I do leading up to a competition, maybe from about 2 months out, I tick how far I get through it. And at the beginning, when you're doing maybe a new routine, you might get halfway through, 3 moves through, 5 moves, like, oh, 110 move through, okay. But by the time get close to the competition, it's nearly every time it's all the way through. And being able to look at that in the lead up and think, actually, like in training, I'm being really consistent, and I'm hitting it every time I get on the trampoline. And then knowing then that I can get through it every single time I get on a trampoline. And I also like to do 50 of a routine before I complete it. And then I think, well, if I've done 50 of them, that's a lot of routines. So just being able to trust my training and just trusting the process. And obviously that doesn't take away the nerves you're going to feel on the day. But when you're, sometimes you have those moments and you think, oh, I don't know if am I able to do this routine? Just, being able to look back through your training diary and think, okay, like in the last 2 weeks, I've got through 95% of my routines. Like the likelihood is I'm going to get through my routine. So let's see how nicely I can get through my routine. And that's the thing that's helped me the most, is just having really consistent training.
Yeah, I actually, one of my favorite things is to just rely on the math rather than the
Yeah.
emotions. And I think that's such a great way to have a visual representation. So sometimes we'll have people put a bead in a jar for every skill you make or
Yeah.
every progression you make. So you start to see that jar fill and fill and fill, even though it
Yeah.
feels like, oh, I only did it on the low beam, or I only did it over here. I had to have the mat on the trampoline, or it wasn't connected to anything. You still
Yeah.
get the bead because you still did the thing and you're still
Yeah.
building confidence. And then you get to look back at your training diary and have pages and pages of check marks.
Yeah.
I mean, that I feel like if you looked at any sport, if you look at your bar routine like that, if you checked every skill you made, that would be such
Yeah.
a better way of looking at it than focusing everything on the one fall or the one mistake.
Yeah.
Because I think we really tend to do that as perfectionists. Look at the one
Yes.
mistake versus all of the things that did go right and all of the skills that you
Yeah.
do have. And is that something that came from that practice, or is that sort of your personality to focus on the good?
I think I've always been pretty optimistic. Like I've gone through periods of my life where I haven't been as optimistic for whatever reason, but generally I've always been a very optimistic person. But I think that like my coach has also instilled that in me, and he always has a phrase that he says if I'm ever worrying, and he says, "Do I look worried?" And we have it as a hashtag. It's always hashtag Do I look worried? And that's our little catchphrase.
Mhm.
And he's like, if I don't look worried, you shouldn't be worried. I'm like, okay. And we've always always been a very positive training environment with him, and that's helped me be more optimistic. And he's never had any doubt in me whether I can get through my routines, and so therefore I feel like I haven't had to either, you know.
Yes, that's my husband for me. He's and that "do
Nice.
I look worried" is so him. That I'll call him and go, "I have a big talk and I'm so nervous." He goes, "Oh, it's gonna be awful. I know it. It's gonna be so terrible." And then I call him after and how'd it go? I'm like, "It went great." He's like, "You don't say." I'm
Yeah.
just so shocked that that went well. Just to know somebody believes in you more than you believe in yourself, I think, and just makes you laugh. Like, why would I second guess when I
Yeah.
have done all this work and all this
Yeah.
preparation? And it
Exactly.
and it doesn't really, I mean, it matters, but in the grand scheme of things, if you make a
Yeah.
mistake. Now, okay, I have a question for you. So you had this incredible experience of winning worlds as a junior and
Yes.
hearing your national anthem. And
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
what was that like?
Honestly, every time I think about it, I like it makes me tear up. It was such an incredible moment. And as you said, the national anthem, that was what hit me the most, because that's something that you hear at such like major events, right? And you only hear it at major events. It's not something you hear all the time. And you know, for at that World Championships, I think in trampolining, there was only I was the only Great British medalist for trampolining at that whole World Championships, and there was only like 3 people in the whole event that weren't Russian or Belarusian, I think. Don't quote me on that, but something like that. Like, so we hear these same national anthems all the time, and then for our national anthem to come up, and I was stood there, and like the GB flag was raised, and everyone was singing, and it was because of me. Like, oh my gosh, it still gives me chills thinking of that moment. And somebody took the most amazing photo of me, and I've got my hand on my heart, and I was singing and looking at the flag, and it's just such a special moment. And I have such fond memories of that whole competition, to be honest. But
Mm.
I wasn't expecting to win it. Essentially, going back before I did win it, I wasn't expecting to. My only goal was to final, because the year before I had come ninth, and the top 8 make the final, and I'd come ninth by 0.04 or something tiny, like the smallest margin. And I'd had to warm up for finals, because the first and second reserve warm up for finals in case somebody hurts themselves in warm up, and then watch everyone else march out and me not. And it was the most heartbreaking moment. And for about 3 months after that, I was so down and so gutted that I hadn't made it, and I'd been so close. And then I thought, no, you know what? Like, I need to use this and make sure that never, ever happens again, because it's the most awful feeling, and I don't want to be in that situation. And 2018, the year that I won it, I won every single competition that I went to. And I worked so hard and did basically nothing except trampolining. And just my whole mindset was trampolining all the time. And I went to this competition just wanting to final. That was my only goal. And in a final, anything can really happen, because people fall off the trampoline all the time. So you never know. And in prelims, my routine actually wasn't very good. And I was about this close to the end mat in my second move out of 10. But I stayed on the trampoline, and I qualified to finals in 7th. And at that time, you competed in reverse order. So the 8th person went up first, and then I was up second. And the person before me fell off the trampoline. So I was like, okay, well, as long as I get through 10 moves, I can't go worse, you know? So I just went on the trampoline, and I thought, I'm just going to enjoy the fact that I'm in a world final. We were in St. Petersburg. It was the most beautiful arena. I'm just going to have fun, I'm in this world final. This is really, really cool. And I just had the best time. And I smiled the entire routine, I'm pretty sure. And I got off the trampoline, and it was one of the best routines I'd ever done up to that moment. And I thought, well, I've given it everything, and now we just wait. And then people's names kept coming up below me, and I just kept staying in first. And I remember vividly when the girl that ended up actually coming second went, and I was like, oh, that routine was really good. And this was, I think, 4 or something before the end. And then she didn't beat me, and I was like, oh, okay. And then it was the person where then I would have come third if the like 2 more people to go. And, you know, I realized I'd got a medal and I started crying and I was like, gosh, I've got a medal at World Championships. Like, this is insane. And then the next person went and I was like, I've got a silver medal at World Championships. Like, this is crazy, you know. And the last person to go was this Japanese girl who was incredible. And she had 2 marks more than me in difficulty. And in like, she'd won the prelims by miles. Like, she was amazing. And so I said to my coach, Brian, who was next to me, amazing guy. I said to him, I was like, silver medal at World Championships. Like, that's pretty damn cool. I'm so excited. And he was like, well, she's got to stay on the trampoline. You know, like, this is a lot of pressure going into a world final and not everyone handles it. And she started her routine. And then all of a sudden she fell off the trampoline. And I was sat there being like, I just couldn't believe it. And I think everyone cried. It was just the craziest moment. And I just remember looking at that board with like the medals come up and like mine with the gold, and just so many emotions, such an incredible moment. Just, yeah, chills.
Incredible, incredible. Well, and those are the types of moments that I hear all the time of Olympians watch someone else have that moment and they go, that this is what I want. This image of that person, that idol of mine up there with their hand over their heart and hearing the music. That's why those little kids work so hard. And I mean, I'm sure you have become such an inspiration for so many little kiddos who just want to be up there for Great Britain or, you know, for whatever country. And what an amazing experience. And I think, you know, when I help kids come up with a pre-performance routine, we always go back through their best performance and find clues. And so for you, I mean, it's crystal clear that fun, enjoyment, not taking it so seriously, not trying necessarily to win, that set you up for success. Are there any other clues that you found from that performance that you like to duplicate when you are under pressure?
I mean, you've pretty much named it. Just having fun and enjoying the moment. For me, like, it's way harder than you say to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, there's been so many times where I have put way too much pressure on myself and I have taken it way too seriously. And sometimes it's difficult, especially as I found as I've got older, like the expectation to take it seriously is a lot higher. And I don't know why that comes in. Like, at the end of the day, it's still a sport, it's still for fun. And, you know, it's not a life or death situation, you know. But as you get older, people expect you to be taking things more seriously and having less fun. And I think most of that expectation comes from myself, to be honest, but that's how it feels. But recently, actually, since I've been working at Disneyland, I went back home for a competition a few weeks back, just for fun, really, but because I promised my friend I'd do synchro with her. And because of the fact I, you know, I haven't been training, I touched a proper trampoline like 3 times in the last 5 months. You know, I was not prepared, and I just had such a fun time. And it took me back to that moment when I was younger at that, you know, at that World Championships where I did just have fun and I put zero pressure on myself at all. And again, the same kind of thing happened a few weeks back where I won the competition and did a really great routine. And it was just exactly the same feeling of zero pressure, just enjoy myself, be on the trampoline because I love trampolining, like enjoy the feeling of the flying that you get in the air and just taking it in the moment and not really thinking about it too much. And that for me is clearly what works the best. So I need to remember that for when I eventually go back and do some competitions and put more pressure on myself.
Yes, well, and I think that's so great that you name it, that you say other people put these expectations on me, but really, who has the power to put
Yeah.
expectations on you? Only we have our own power to do that.
Yeah.
Because someone could have been running around going, Louise has to be perfect at Worlds, and you would have gone, whatever, I'm doing my
Yeah.
thing here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to win anything. You do you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then now I'm curious, in 2019, if I have it correctly, you had kind of
Yeah.
a bad meet. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like
So
the immediate following year, right? You had all this
yeah.
success, and then the next year you go and you have this kind of not good meet.
Well, so essentially 2019, it went from me just having a load of fun to like all of a sudden I was world champion, and then there was like so much more pressure and I was a funded athlete and I was like pushed up all these things and it was like, whoa, okay. And I also transitioned to seniors. 2019 was a crazy year. And then later in the year, it wasn't like a specific meet, but I was just training and I broke a spring and like pinged sideways and hurt my back really badly. And I found out subsequently there was a few things that happened. I had a few weeks off. I had British Championships. British Championships was a bit of a mess because I could barely walk, to be honest. I was on so many painkillers and competed, and it was a bit of a mess. And then I had a few more weeks off, and I was trying to train for World Championships, and I was in so much pain. And I eventually had an MRI because things weren't getting better, and they found a fracture from a few years prior where I'd landed awkwardly at a competition and essentially broken my back. And it's like the bit that sticks out the back of the vertebrae, so not like in the middle or anything, but I'd broken part of my back. And where I'd landed awkwardly a few weeks before, I'd like moved something, and essentially I ended up having to be pulled out of World Championships because I was not really fit at all to compete, and it was decided that it was detrimental to my health to try and push through that. And so I ended up having almost a whole year off, which was awful. But it kind of in a good way, kind of in a bad way, but it coincided perfectly with COVID. So I actually only missed one competition through having a whole year off. So that was very lucky, I think. I didn't miss too much. But it was really, really rough having no training to be doing because I was essentially on like 10 minutes of walking a day for 3 months. And like really, really basic deep core exercising and stretching, laying flat on my back, and that was it. It was rough. And then also having a global pandemic and not being able to see my friends and doing anything else that like might be fun. And yeah, that was a rough situation to navigate through. So 2019 and 2020 were definitely interesting. But I have come back stronger through that, and I found other like weaknesses in my body that I didn't know I had through like going to physio and like all of that stuff a lot more, and I fixed a lot of other problems which would have eventually been more problems in the future. So like, there's silver linings to all of it. But yeah, after that 2018 Worlds, things definitely took a bit of a downhill spiral for a few years. Yeah.
And then, okay, so then after all that, you have this huge success, this terrible year. Did you
Yeah.
come back and put a lot of pressure on yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I came back in at the end of 2021. So I'd had 2 whole years off, really. Like I came back to training, but didn't compete till end of 2021. And then I had my first senior world championships at the end of 2021. And I put so much pressure on myself. And like realistically, I was still rehabbing. Like I know it was a few years, but it was a back injury. It was kind of a lot. And so it took me a while to get back from that. And I was still coming back from it. I still wasn't at 100% fitness, and wasn't really back to where I was before I hurt myself. And then I was going into my first senior world championships and kind of had the expectation on myself that I should be performing as well as I did at the last world championships that I did, which was the junior one that I won it. And looking back, it's ridiculous. Like I never should have had that expectation on myself. But I think, my teammates were Isabel Songhurst and Bryony Page. Bryony Page won that World Championships, and Izzy's also a very good experienced gymnast, and I was training alongside them and thinking like I should be as good as them, even though Bryony's 10 years older than me. Like, it's not realistic. And looking back, I wish I had like taken a moment to just let the other people on that team be separate and me be just the new gymnast coming in and not have the same expectations that they all had on them. But I think, we were all together and we were all having these expectations as a group. And it was a case of, well, Bryony's incredible and Izzy's incredible and you're in the team. So as a team, you should be amazing. And therefore I need to be amazing. And all of these things that got grouped together. And it ended up not being a very good competition. Surprise. Like it wasn't bad. I got through my routines, but I didn't do my routines how I could have done them, and I could have done them a lot better if I had just relaxed a little bit and enjoyed my first senior world championships a little bit more. But yeah, I think definitely looking back in my journey, that's something, if I could say to myself a little bit or to change maybe, would be to just take as much pressure off myself as possible and just try and enjoy the moments. You know, there's not many times anyone in their life gets to go to a world championships. And I was there, and that's pretty cool in itself. And just like recognizing that and allowing myself to enjoy it rather than worrying about the outcome.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes. And the scientist in me goes, well, that was a great experiment. That was a
yes.
great experiment. And what happens when I have expectations?
Yeah.
And and then typically people underperform when they have expectations. Expectations I've found are the antithesis of self-trust. You can't have both at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you're trusting your coach, you're letting go of expectations. If you're trusting
Yeah.
yourself, if you're just up there smiling like an idiot on a trampoline because it's so cool that you're in a world final, I mean, that is what's going to bring out the
Yeah.
best performance for most athletes. But everyone has
Yeah.
to do their own experiments, and you have to go have a few underperformances to learn what doesn't work.
Yes.
And fortunately, you got that great one out of the way early so that you can, file away what works. So Louise just needs to smile and have a great time and be
Yes.
grateful for the opportunity and then just let the training shine. And
Yeah.
oh, it's so fun. And then all the little
Yes.
kiddos get to look up to you and go, she's so cool. I mean, beyond Disneyland, obviously. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, so cool. Yeah, Worlds, Disneyland, I don't know. It's hard to know which
I
one
don't
is
know. That
cute.
was pretty, yeah.
Depends on
We
how
had
old you
a
are.
Yeah, there's some cute little kids that come to Disneyland like every week because they have passes, and they've made little Momrath stuffed toys, and like they come and they drew one of my friends a picture the other day, and it's just the most adorable thing. I love it.
Oh, okay. So I mean, all's well in the end,
Yes,
regardless. Okay, now what's
yes.
next for you? What do you have in mind for your career?
Honestly, I have no idea.
No expectations.
No expectations, just enjoy myself. I don't know. I'm the kind of person that just likes to say yes, and I like everything, and I just love learning things. So I'm loving learning trampoline. I'm loving learning Russian swing. I would love to pursue both of them more. I also still love competing. Like when I went back for the competition a few weeks ago, I loved it. I had a wonderful time. And like I took the break this year, and I think I needed that. Like I needed to center myself a little bit. I was getting too worked up in the expectation and putting the pressure on myself, and you know, and it was a lot. And I wanted to have some fun and go back to why I do trampolining, which is what I've done this year, and I'm having the best time. And it was definitely the right choice. Um, but I feel like that will then help me in if I want to go back to competing, like remembering that mindset of enjoying myself and how much better I perform in that. So I think I could go back to competing and be better, or I could do these circus things. I want to do Cirque du Soleil. I maybe want to come back to Disneyland again. I I have no idea. I'm gonna see how things go. I have still got a good relationship with the GB team, and I've spoken with the coaches there, and like we had a big chat about whether I would come this year, and obviously the Olympics is there, and we've got 2 spaces for the Olympics, and I was ranked third, so it was a case of how all of that stuff works. And but we just decided it was best for me to come and enjoy myself for a year and have a good time, which is what I've done. And we've talked about if I want to go back, how that works, and we've got a plan if I want to go back onto the GB squad for next year and start competing, or whether I want another year off before I go back or whatever. So I still have that option, and I don't know. There's too many options, and all of them sound amazing, so I can't
They
decide.
do. I mean, I think it's perfect that you thrive with no expectations and having a good time. So
Yes,
I imagine that it will all be revealed to you and you will just walk through the beautifully open doors that lead you to a
I
happy
hope
life.
so. I hope
Yeah.
so. I feel like something will come along, and I'll have a few decisions to make along the way, but I'm sure they'll be good ones. So.
Oh, if we could only all live like that, it would be so easy and wonderful. Oh, Louise, what a joy and pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to talk to you and learn
Yeah.
about how the brain works. That's really cool.
I know, I love it. Well, and so if anybody wants to reach out to you or follow you, what's the best way to find you?
So pretty much all of my social media is just at Louise Brownsey. So that's easy enough. The one I use the most is Instagram. Sometimes I use TikTok. I don't really use anything else. But yes, follow me on Instagram is the best way to get in touch if you want to say hi and see me learning trampoline and being a crazy mome ref right now.
Yes, yes, follow Louise. It's a delight. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure
Awesome.
meeting you.
Thank you so much.